So as a general overview of the Power Platform, we've got the main components. So we've got Power BI, we've got Power Apps, we've got Power Automate, and the new addition, Power Virtual Agents. These are the four components that kind of actually do things for you, essentially. So you can use Power Apps as kind of developing applications for people to submit information or to collect data. You can use Power Automate for process automation, so you can run through workflows and they can get as complicated as you like. You can use Power BI to analyze any data you've got within the organization and even data that you collect through the other parts of this process. And then Power Virtual Agents, which allows us to increase the way we collect data from people using kind of AI-driven intelligent chatbots. These all sit above kind of a data layer. So in that, we've got data connectors, which allow us to connect to other systems. We've got an AI builder, which is another quite new component, and that's not what we're going to be touching on today, but that's something for the future. And then we've got the common data service, which can store your data. There are multiple ways to store your data, but this is kind of an enterprise level data storage service. So if we move into Power Apps, what we'll say is Power Apps is kind of the user interface generator. So it allows you to create intuitive applications, to deploy those to people's mobile phones or desktops. We can integrate them into other areas such as Teams, but it's a very quick and simple way of creating an intuitive user interface without any design experience. So we don't need to have our design teams on hand to make sure that everything's working. They're accessible and responsive. So if you load an application on a different form factor to that it's been designed for, it will still work. It's quick and easy to create, and they are customizable. So any of your kind of citizen developers, as they're known, who create these apps can keep them maintained, up to date. They can be used for personal use, kind of simply within the teams, or they can be deployed to other people within the organization if they're useful. And the benefit of using Power Apps to generate kind of interfaces is that Microsoft have spent a lot of time, effort, and research on making sure that these are accessible to people with different IT needs. So we can benefit from all of that good research without having to invest too heavily in making sure that things are fit for purpose ourselves. We can now look at Power Automate briefly. Power Automate is a process and automation engine. So you can take what you've got with we can take business processes that you've got within your organization, and you can model them out step by step within Power Automate. This allows you to get multiple inputs from different areas of the business. It allows you to save that data and work with it in a structured fashion, and it allows you to interact with other parts of the ecosystem. So the benefits of this is you get a much more modern workflow. You reduce paper or spreadsheets, which are often widely used throughout businesses and stored in any number of places on network drives or indeed in physical format. You can create proper audit trails, so all of the interactions throughout a workflow are logged, and you can see exactly where this workflow has been and who's interacted with it. It creates multi-stage processes and makes them easier. So as part of building this into a Power Automate workflow, you can actually look at your processes and see how useful they are and whether there's too much over engineering, and you can automate the multi-stage process, but you can also simplify it as part of that process. You can then interact with other parts of Microsoft 365. So you benefit from kind of the security of using people's 365 logons through Azure AD. You benefit from being able to send emails, store things in SharePoint, and you manage to connect to all of these services. You can send messages in Teams, and they're all native connections. So you don't have to have any complex development going on to make sure that these things can talk to each other. You can also trigger automation and processes based on different triggers. So you can have processes that run on timed intervals that remind people to do things. You can have things that are manually started. They can be based on actions such as submissions of forms or indeed through Power Automate. And they can also be timed on activities. So when an email arrives in a particular mailbox, there may be some action that needs to take off the back of that receipt of that email. Power BI as part of the platform is an intelligent reporting engine. So it allows you to use business intelligence in a simple manner to understand data. Every business sits on a whole lot of data, which is stored in various formats. By bringing it into Power BI, and you can connect multiple systems and consolidate your data feeds, but by bringing that into Power BI, it allows you to identify data. It allows you to bring that in and report on it. It allows you to create dashboards and dissect your data. And you can start to look over a longer time period at how you're storing things, what you're using, and identify your trends. The data that companies hold is often the most powerful thing that they've got, but using it properly is often not done very well. So using Power BI and dashboarding this data, you can start to analyze real-time data, but also historical data, and really make the most of what you've got. Power Virtual Agents, as I've said earlier, is the newest addition to the Power Platform. So what we can do with Power Virtual Agents is we can implement an intelligent chat functionality. So it gives people a much more informal way of finding answers or getting data into the organization. So it makes it easier for people to communicate. It's done with natural language. So it's an informal, multi-turn conversation driven by AI, which you can generate kind of FAQs and sections and questions and answers. And then things can happen off the back of that. So the virtual agent can ask the relevant questions to the people at the right time, as any other kind of chat operative would do. And then off the back of that, you can launch actions such as Power Automate, or you can send messages through Exchange or into Teams or into any of the other options that you've got for communicating with people to make sure the right people are getting the outcomes of those conversations. It also includes analytics to understand the performance of the virtual agent. So you can see how many successful resolutions it's had to conversations, how many actions have been launched off the back of it, and how successful those things have been.